Hey everyone, it's Mike Andes. I'm the founder of Augusta Lawn Care. We have almost 100 locations around North America. But today, I'm telling you about the last week when we had a little run-in with OSHA. All right, if you've never had a little run-in with OSHA, you probably will eventually one day, especially if you're growing very large, especially if you have quite a few competitors that are large as well locally, you'll probably one day have OSHA come knocking on your door. So let me tell you a little story. Sit back, relax, and come along for the ride. So several weeks ago, we were reported anonymously to OSHA because of, they just said, hey, these people are unsafe working conditions or whatever. And so anonymously, they were submitted. However, we are able to see the address of the person that submitted this complaint. And it so happened to be the address for TruGreen, our local TruGreen location. So that was interesting, kind of strange. We actually do service for TruGreen, just not in Washington State. So the location I'm talking about right now is in Bellingham, Washington. But we actually do work for TruGreen. It just so happens that it's in North Carolina, another location that I own in Mooresville, where we actually mow their headquarters. Funny thing, they know who to call when it comes to mowing and lawn care services. Thank you very much. But however, locally, we were reported by TruGreen to OSHA because of unsafe working conditions for our employees. So what does that lead to? It leads to a full-out inspection. So they came out to the office randomly. They didn't tell us they were coming. Fortunately, Marcus was there at the time. He's the local GM. And actually, I think Lee was there at the time too. So they're basically like, yep, we're going to do a random inspection and we want you to go through all of this stuff with us. So they literally went through everything. Trucks, safety procedures, everything. And honestly, we did really good. We have first aid kits. We have fire extinguishers. We have safety goggles and safety glasses, ear protection that we give away for free to the employees. Like we kind of checked like all the boxes. Like we have fire extinguishers in the trucks and everything. And we passed all of it. But we actually thought we were in the clear. We thought everything was, hunky-dory because they were really happy at the meeting and we like, oh, this is great. I wasn't there. Marcus did the entire thing. Shout out to him. And Lee was there as well. And then they came back and they randomly had this one thing. Now, part of the inspection and part of the investigation by OSHA was that we had to have one of the employees wear an auditory tracking device that measured the decibel ratings throughout the day. Now, obviously, we're using, weed whackers and blowers, etc. It's loud, okay? So that's why we give them ear protection. And we get the good ear protection, not the cheap piece of junk stuff. Like we actually get the good stuff from 3M. It's good. Anyways, all of that to say, we get them coming back after the inspection and everything we thought had gone really well and basically checked off everything. They had a few remarks on some of our safety written protocols that we had up on the wall. So we made sure those were posted a little bit better. But other than that, everything looked really good. But then they come back and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, you're in violation of something that's really big and it needs to be remedied in the next 30 days. However, we're still going to fine you for it. It's still going to be considered an infraction and you're going to get a penalty. And this penalty is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of between $1,500 and $15,000 because it was like 3 different infractions, all of which were under the same thing. And each of those infractions can be between $500 and $5,000. So technically the penalty could be anywhere from $1,500 to $15,000 as a penalty for this infraction. And regardless of whether or not we fix it in the next 30 days, which we have to do anyways. But this is the crazy thing. I had never heard of this infraction ever. I never heard of this. And upon getting this notice, I contacted about 5 to 10 other local contractors and said, like, hey, have you guys ever heard of this ever? And they all were like, no, we've never heard of that. They've probably never been inspected by OSHA because they've probably never been reported by TruGreen. But however, hey, look, first and foremost, let me be very clear. Worker safety is extremely important to me and I don't take it lightly. I'm all on board with OSHA doing their thing. However, they come back with this auditory testing infraction. And this is something I never ever knew we had to do. And I would venture to believe that 99.5% of people listening to this don't know this exists. So I learn things every single day. Did you know that you're supposed to, at least in the state of Washington, you're supposed to, but OSHA is a federal agency. It could potentially be something national, but at least in Washington State, you have to check the hearing and do an auditory test of your employees every single year annually to make sure that they're not losing their hearing too much. And if you are, you can get in trouble for it. Now, this is what's crazy. And this is what Lee, because he was there at the time when they came back in, he's like, hey, how does that make sense? Because what if they go on the weekend and they're at the shooting range and they don't wear ear protection? Like they're going to blow out their ears and yet of course their rating over the course of a year is going to be bad. And they're like, yeah, that's true. But you still got to track it and you got to do the testing. And if you if they're losing their hearing, you could be penalized for that. And it's just like, what in the world? So fortunately, it's not like you have to pay for this. It's just a matter of contacting Labor and Industries, L&I, if you get your workers' comp, like in Washington State, you get your workers' comp and everything through L&I, Labor and Industries. So it's free. Like you just have to have them come out and test your employees every year. And I'm like, look, I'm okay with that. It just, I and no one else around here ever knew that was a rule. And so I actually appealed the infraction. I said, look, I get we made a mistake. I just had no idea that this was an infraction. And if I didn't know, I would want to comply and make sure that we fixed this and did whatever you guys thought we were supposed to do to keep our employees safe. But I just didn't know about this rule. And I said, by the way, you might want to work on some sort of education process, because I contacted a bunch of other contractors and landscapers in the local area, and none of them had ever heard of this. And what you actually have to do is contact them, and OSHA comes out to your property once a year, does auditory testing for all your employees, tracks the employees, and then has one of them wear a device to monitor it over the course of time. And it's just like, are you serious? I was just shocked. I literally still don't know what's going to happen here, because I just submitted my appeal. And I said, look, I'm not appealing whether or not this is a citation and whether or not this is an infraction. I am appealing that I should be penalized for between $1,500 and $15,000, because I just had no idea. And you all never told me. And it's not like you told me, hey, you're in violation. If you don't fix it in 30 days, then you get penalized. You're just slapping a penalty on me from the get-go, when everything else, which actually moves the needle for worker safety, was just fine. Nothing else was reported after a long investigation. So I don't know where this is going. I'll keep you all updated. For the record, TruGreen, you got a point here. You reported us and you got us in trouble, so good for you. We'll see what the long run has for you. I'm not going to report TruGreen and tell all the bad things that they've done, but we will see how the long-term game plays out between TruGreen and Augusta Lawn Care now that they have officially reported us. Well, hey, if they're reporting us, they must be nervous about something, because we don't compete with them. Locally, they just do treatments. We don't even do treatments and chemicals. So I think it's really scummy, by the way, that you would ever report your competition. I think it's a horrible way to build your business. And I think ultimately it comes back to bite you. Gary Vaynerchuk always says you can build the biggest building in town two ways. One, you can build the biggest building, like focus on growing your business and making it better, getting better customers, growing the company, etc. Or you can just tear everyone else's building down, and then regardless of how mediocre your company is, you can still be the biggest building in town. So TruGreen, despite your $2 billion in revenue, you just keep trying to tear down other buildings, and guess what? One day someone's going to build a bigger building than you.